And
Joining us, everybody. So it's 9:47, and I'll call the finance meeting to order. It's good to be here with you guys in the same room and not staring at the TV like that. So let's go ahead and I'll turn the time over to the powers that be to go over the financial items on the agenda and things to come out for our upcoming meeting.
Well, we can go through these finance. You have it on the screen, right?
Yeah,
So you
I
can
do have
share
it.
it.
Yep.
So the first in terms of finance resolutions, 110, acceptance of monthly financial reports. So this number one. So I'll go right to the second one, amendment to the 2022 fee schedule. So for that, you want to look at your attachment. Attachment number 3 has the details on that Jean put together. Jean, I believe there were what, 2 amendments to the fee schedule?
Correct. Yep. One is just reflecting that the Infintech updated credit card fees. The other thing is at the beginning is to note that New York State Public Schools get the town resident rate. And then we've also added people the availability to rent Babcock Hall in 3-hour increments for birthday parties. Those are actually 3. I think those are the changes, so,
They were never able to do that in the past.
no. Mm-mm.
This was that building Babcock. We Lindsay and I were
Is it the big
brainstorming. It was sitting there
Yeah,
being
it's down by the lake.
underutilized.
It's
That's
Oh,
the
the one right
shared
next to
boat
the
with
beach.
boat, yeah.
And so we came up with birthdays at
Birthdays at
Babcock.
which is great.
And we changed the fees for the school districts to just New York State schools.
New York State schools will pay the town resident rate, public schools.
Right.
Public
Okay,
schools.
good.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's a huge change.
Yeah.
There is one other one there, bundles of wood. I don't
Oh,
know
thank
when it's
you.
available for
Yes.
$5 for
Yeah.
town and non-town. That's
We'll have to talk
for the
about
new
that.
That's
fire
why
run.
it's when it's available.
When available. When available.
I've got a
So
way to, I've talked to Lindsay about how we
Yeah.
can make it.
And
We have
we've
some
done that-
extra
We haven't done that
stuff.
before,
No, this will be brand new.
and especially with the
Community fire pit.
with the fire pit, but with also just with the rules of transporting.
Right, exactly.
everything else.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
good.
So, any questions on the fee schedule?
I just want, there's two bathroom facilities at Blue Heron.
There currently is a porta potty because we don't have actual
Water.
building yet.
Okay.
That is in the plan. That's in our long-term capital improvement plan. One of the things, just so you're aware of that, one of the things that Jim and I have met a couple different times with the fire department, I think there's an opportunity eventually with Uptown, more than likely, there's going to be some sort of either building. I really envision, based on the conversation that I've had with the landowner building it out, they're going to have restaurants very close to Blue Heron on the backside in some of those buildings. So I'm sure that there's going to be some sort of opportunity for us to do something there with restrooms longer term as that builds out. But one of the things Jim and I had talked with the fire department about is actually putting public restrooms over the fire department, the building right there, since it's right there, helping connect all that. So, but there's some interior modifications that need to be done in that building. That building's pretty old anyway. It's
Put 'em-
on our list.
You
so.
put them above the fire station?
No,
No.
there's actually a way to break the bunk room in half and separate and make it outdoor and public
Okay.
access.
Right.
Okay, so
Not
the
going into the rest of it.
wheelchairs if you have access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the next 2 resolutions are Jean with changes in her office for the clerk or
Yay.
deputy clerks, I
Yes.
should say.
So I will be appointing Rebecca as my first deputy. And so I'm doing that, doing a salary increase to 19. And then I have hired a new deputy clerk to replace Lisa, who will replace Rebecca's position. So she'll be my second deputy. The first start date will be Wednesday, May 18th, with a salary starting at $17.50, and then after 16 months, or after 6 months, giving her a 50-cent raise. So she's coming to us. Lindsay and Kate both sat in on the interviews, and once the second interview was done, closed the door, and they said, "You are hiring her."
She was awesome.
She'll be a
Really
great
excited.
asset to not only my office, but to the town staff as a whole. She'll really fit in very well. So
Good question. Next resolution is the EGS Advanced Energy.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of weeks back at our finance committee meeting last month prior to the agenda review. And there were some questions from some of the committee members. So we did go back to EGS and we discussed with them. The concern was if we move forward, are we locked in? If we also move forward with CCA, the Community Choice Aggregation, will we have the ability to choose between the two? And he said, absolutely. He said, at this point, all that we would do would be move forward with the audit looking back, and then we would come back to the town to discuss how you want to move forward from there. So this authorizes them to go forward with the utility billing audit. And we did specifically write into this that we would like a separately authorized to move forward for any negotiated terms, so that we're really being really clear and documenting that we're just doing the audit portion at this point in time.
And they'll tell you if they can save you any money or not.
Correct, yeah, so the audit portion, they'll look back and find out if we can get any credits.
Right.
And then the next step would be to actually negotiate rates based on our usage, what they get from that audit, to then negotiate rates. And we would have the ability to compare that with the CCA rate as
They
well.
did say, because what I was reading from him is they are pretty competitive with that.
He
Didn't
feels
he make the
feels
same
very
thing that They
confident
can beat that.
that they can beat it, yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that the-
No, it certainly gives us options.
Yes, right. They give us some examples of where they've saved other municipalities. Even I think Steuben County, there was pretty significant savings in Steuben County. I heard that they were going to be looking at Ontario County. I don't know if that has happened yet.
It's not come up yet.
No.
I know Troy and Banks recently did an audit for the county as well. I think maybe they were on some of those.
Gotcha. The next resolution here is the standard resolution that we always have to do for the newly elected officials, right? Is that, Jean, is that the correct verbiage? Is the newly elected into a position? Because I know it also. you
It's
and-
if you change, right? If you change
it's,
position.
I do it for anybody that's elected.
Mhm.
Because I tried doing it for Jim when he was reelected and they bounced it back and I said, forget it, I'll just do the records of activity and just do this. So it's for anybody that is elected and anybody that's appointed that does not fill out doesn't use the the time clock system.
But like, what about Terry? He just started a new. term.
That's
He
for
doesn't-
the,
But it's only for people that are in the
Retirement system.
retirement system.
Oh, gotcha.
Who
Okay.
are elected to join the retirement system. So yes.
Cool.
You worked a lot of
So that
years.
just says
Oh,
the
yeah.
standard workday for their record keeping purposes with the state contracts. Okay.
So what, Jared, why are you in there? Because you're in the retirement system for the school, right?
Mhm.
Or are you in, you're not getting an ERS, unless you're getting an ERS here.
Yeah, well, I'm contributing to it, so I'm paying into it.
Okay.
And you have to track it down.
Yeah, I got to do 2 of these.
Look at you.
I know, thank goodness for spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Use for spreadsheets. The next resolution is, we talked about this, I think, at the last finance meeting, right? The use of American Deposit for additional investments.
Yep, this again, yeah, we had that discussion and this just brings their contract to your attention and authorizes moving forward. And we had discussed how nice it is with New York class to have the ability to create sub-accounts and label them by each of our reserves. I specifically asked our contact and they said, absolutely, we can do that. So that's really, I'm excited about that too. But this one again is just a little bit different. They actually put us in underneath the FDIC insurance with different banks. So one of the things we have to provide to them is a list of banks we have money with so that we're always covered under FDIC insurance.
Yeah, it's our discussion of liquid icing.
Do you want to just, before we go, I mean, you're gonna have to leave here in a minute or two, right?
Yeah,
Do you want to say anything, Raymond?
well, just we're meeting with Innovative Solutions, who has been a long-term vendor of the town for de-icing products. But over the past year, Kevin Alvady, myself, the city of Canandaigua, and the town of Gorham have been discussing with the North Country of their use of multiple different de-icing products to help lessen the chlorides going into tributaries, which end up in the lake. So today, we have a group of us are meeting today to discuss that for next season. One, we'll say some trial runs of different materials to see what works the best to use less salts and less organics of the liquid de-icing product to lessen the halves into the Sitkanick Lake.
Awesome.
And we said us, it's highway superintendent.
Highway superintendents, Cornell Local Roads is here today, and a few others. So
Didn't you use something
That's awesome.
different on County Road 16 or whatever?
we use different blades, and we used a magnesium chloride product.
Different mixture?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They don't like us using the, we call it ice band magic, but that's just what we call it. The organics from the molasses and brewer's grain can potentially create organics in the water that could create the halves. So we're looking less at those, looking more at others, and we're looking at brine. I know the city of Canada was looking at doing a brine system. That, I don't mean to digress, but like our trucks have no way possible to put a brine system in without quite expensive retrofitting of our equipment. That's why we're treating the salt versus buying a bunch of equipment. So, but yes, we'll start out.
So did you find success with those blades?
Oh God, we love them.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
talked about it at Watershed Council last week.
Yeah, the blades, we've actually, our mechanic Jim Burke worked with Northern Supply in East Bloomfield, who we buy blades from. They designed it. We ran it this summer on several roads. We ran it all winter. Kevin Levady does have a grant to help offset the cost of those blades. But yeah, we definitely were using,
Yes, he was
less
mentioning it.
salt in areas with the blade.
50% less. in
We
some
can
areas.
clear that uneven road just down to, get rid of it out of the wheel ruts and stuff. So it does, that blade makes a difference, and if we can take that blade and come up with the right application of liquid and salt to reduce that also to, I'm not gonna put public safety at risk, but if we use less of it, we can help protect the lake better. So,
I think you described it to me when you first started, it's almost like a rubber squeegee.
It is.
Squeegeeing off the road.
yeah,
Yes, you don't have the ruts in the building.
right, we've tried a couple of them, so, but yeah, that's what we've been working on for about a year-ish.
Nice.
So,
Fantastic.
yeah, so, all right, I gotta go order here, so, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
The next resolution is the appointment of real property appraisal agent. So this is a civil service promotion for Michelle Rullison in the development office from senior clerk to real property appraisal aide, working specifically in the office of assessment. Michelle, just saying, and I think it's fair to say, and so everybody's aware, Michelle has started taking the courses to become an assessor, I'm sorry. And she's really excited about it. She's really motivated. I'm super excited to see her interest in that, because it's such a difficult, as we know, just going through this, it's such a difficult position to fill. And with her experience and all these years in the development office and the building and everything, I think it's going to be a natural, and I think it's going to be a long-term succession plan for the town of Catholic. So super cool.
How's our new assessor working out?
Hasn't started yet.
Oh.
Can't tell
He'll
yet.
start the 25th,
Okay,
but so far our interactions with him have been very pleasant,
Mhm.
very knowledgeable.
I was teasing Michelle this morning. We were talking about her communication with him. She may have to help him with some of the technology.
You think? No, he's awesome.
There's a learning curve for everybody.
For everyone,
Everyone.
And we are gonna, there will be a meeting with the counties also, as far as how the county can assist with the process going forward.
Yeah, specifically the reviews,
For
right?
the review.
Yeah.
So that is in the works as well as.
Which I think would be a huge help, because there's just so much day to day, especially having him split between the two. And then Michelle, obviously here, and I think Paula in Farmington, I believe is her name. There's so much just the day-to-day with the new construction, the building, the exemptions, and keeping up with all that. If we could have the county help us with basically the revamp, especially coming in with a new perspective and professional perspective to come in and help with a baseline revamp, that would be huge. So,
I did already get an earful at Tops about that, but
oh,
it's
did
a
you?
conversation for a different time.
The next one, health insurance.
Oh, that's neat.
Sure.
So it's that time of year for us to renew our health insurance plan. So we worked with our broker, Matson and Kellogg. And we did select obviously the best plan for the town and the least expensive to our employees and the town. There was a 10% increase overall. So just like last year, the employees, as you can see right there, bronze pays 5% of the new premium plus the 10% increase from the prior year. Silver plan, 10% of the new premium plus 10% of the increase from the prior year, and then gold, employees responsible for all costs over and above the town's contribution equal to those contributed by the town Silver 2 plan. We did not change anything with our HRA, HSA contributions from last year, so that is all the same, and it is within our budget that we had, that the town board has adopted from this year.
That's pretty good. I've heard some estimates of 20% increases.
Yeah, Matson and
Some of the
Kellogg has been very good
consortiums-
to us,
Some of
helping
the
us with that.
consortiums are pushing at 20%, which is
Crazy,
it's
crazy.
yeah.
The other thing that I absolutely love about our broker, Matson and Kellogg, that I don't feel like we used to have with our previous brokers, is Matson and Kellogg comes out and meets with every single employee if the employee wants to really go through their health needs, what plans might be best for them, and kind of helps them select what works well for them and everything.
And
then-
even outside of that, if any employees have questions that I can't answer, Matson and Kellogg is there to answer them.
They've been very good.
Yes.
Is there any benefit in getting the other municipalities?
So there is, but there's a limitation on, like, for instance, Victor is in a consortium with Brown and Brown, but you have to have 50 full-time equivalents to join.
Okay.
And so we just don't qualify. But there is, if we ever hit that threshold. So we've looked at that a couple of different times, but we just always fall short.
How close are we?
What, half a dozen
Yeah.
on the FTEs, because it's FTEs.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not many. Who knows? Maybe in the future.
One
As we
year-
grow.
That's something that we've always looked at periodically from time to time. One year, our plans were actually less expensive than the consortium.
That's
So,
why I brought that up,
Yeah.
because that's been an issue with some others,
Right.
is that it's cheaper for some, it was cheaper for some to go off on their own.
Mhm.
It happens. I mean, those consortiums, it's like the stock market, you know, it's up and
Yeah.
down.
Right, right.
And up until this year, they've been really low. I mean, they've been as low as 4, because we were in one at the college, and we were as low as 4%.
Mhm.
That's was like that for a few years, and now
Yeah,
this year it
not
just
this
blew
year.
up. Yeah.
The one thing, I don't think we talked about it maybe in the last couple of years, but there is, I think Jack, at least the last I knew, Jack was the president of the consortium through Brown and Brown. And there are some counties that offer insurance to be purchased under their basically umbrella. Tompkins County is the only one in our area that I know that does it. But all the municipalities in Tompkins County can buy under their umbrella, and so they get a better rate. Ontario County hasn't done that to this point, but
Best to say.
But, you know, before you get in one, you should talk to your consultant and say, you know, what's our track record been? Because
Yeah.
if your claims are really good, then you might not want to get in the consortium, because then you're paying for someone else
Right.
who's got the higher ones.
correct. And then our increases on average, I think, have been 10% or below. I mean, our broker
That's-
has been really good to us. We changed.
I think it was 18.
17 or
17,
18.
28.
I think it
Yeah.
was 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can keep 10% or below, you're doing really well.
Do you remember all those years? That was always used to be such a hot topic. We would have hours upon hours upon hours of meetings on health insurance.
We needed health insurance afterwards.
Does that mean they're better, or we're just numb to it? We're just accustomed to that?
Maybe both.
Yeah, a little bit of each.
The next is, I think, Gene, you're surplusing some stuff.
Yep, just a lot of extra computer stuff, hard drives, and then the large format scanner. We have a new one that's replaced it. So just a lot of computer assets stuff that the old server that we needed to get rid of for a while. So
How's your new scanner working?
it's
out?
awesome. It's so fast. The quality is so much better. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Speaking of server, I just want to make sure, just kind of put it on everybody's radar. Our capital improvement plan calls for replacing our server, I believe, next year, right?
Mhm,
We talked
that is
about this the
correct.
other day. However, we think we can get at least a year out of it longer, but we really need to move it to more of a cloud-based situation. It'll provide much better security. It'll provide a lot more robust features for us. Also even access, the remote access, and with it being cloud-based. So we'll talk about that in the future, but I just want to put it on everybody's radar that it's definitely something that's going to be coming back around. So the next is you, okay?
Yeah, I kind of presented this along with Michelle and the clerks in the development office who handle the processing of our mail. The Pitney Bowes postage meter, we do internal postage, so we run all the postage and send it out. That meter is just, our records are like 20+ years on that thing. So Pitney Bowes had reached out to us and they had two options. We could purchase a new meter outright, kind of similar to a lot of the way software is going, or we could go with a lease under the Sourcewell. When we looked at all the numbers for that, it actually was more beneficial for the town to do the lease because the maintenance and the service and all of that is included in the 5-year lease agreement. So it would, at the end of the day, be less expensive with the addition. And it also has a lot more options than the old one did. This one will connect to a cloud server and it'll allow us to log into a program and track postage by department, which is currently being done manually by our staff. So it's going to save them a lot of time, as well as give us a lot more ability to control how the meter is using. So this again is all within our budget for the year for postage. Because we had previously budgeted for maintenance on the old one. So there's no change in finance. This is just an improvement of the agreement to go ahead and get the new meter.
So it lets you keep up with the technology as it changes too. 5 years, who knows what, if you bought it, if that
Exactly.
machine's gonna be any good.
Exactly.
The tracking of those postage expenses, those become in particular, let me just give you a quick example, like for instance, water bills. So for instance, charging the Canandaigua Consolidated Water District for sending those bills out so that residents who are not part of the Canandaigua Consolidated aren't the ones paying to send those bills. I mean, just all that type of stuff that we do just to make sure that everybody is contributing to the service that they're receiving.
Exactly. Exactly. And it gives the department heads a lot of control over how their expenses are. If they're not seeing their postage, they may not realize how much they're actually spending.
Are we gonna have to put that in our budget for next year specifically?
Let's work.
We'll talk
on
about
as
it.
we
So
go.
you don't allocate postage right now. It's just one big line, other than to those districts.
Large.
Yeah, we do large, like, so for instance, with the rebound, right? So there was extra money for postage in the assessor's department, or like water, there's extra, or like the
Taxes.
development office spends, I mean, there's constantly mailing out all those notices and everything. Okay, the next is the town clerk's 21 audit.
Yes, it went great. They found absolutely nothing wrong. So our procedures are being followed as written. We updated a couple of them. And so that is being presented to you for acceptance. So it was like, they were here and I was like, okay, we're ready to go. And I was like, already? And they said, yeah, we didn't find anything. Okay, see ya.
There is in your attachment, there is a letter to the town board.
Correct.
Just detailing that.
Yep.
The next resolution is acceptance of the MRB proposal for the National Environmental. That's the National Environmental Policy Act. Thank you. Yes, it's essentially, it's the federal version of seeker. We're very familiar with seeker at the state level. This is the federal version. So from what I understand from Charlie Fillion, who's the executive director of the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal and Community Development Block Grant money. Any new, he just told me this a couple of weeks ago, but any new application for any grant involving CDBG money has to include a NEPA with the submission now, otherwise they're going to reject it as an incomplete application. It's a step that they are instilling because it's such a burdensome federal requirement. So there is an expense to doing this. We're asking you to approve this. What I'm going to try to do, if at all possible, is find out if they're actually going to give us the money before we execute this agreement. But the timing is going to be tight within a couple of days. So that's why if you guys could authorize me to do this, and then
How
obviously
expensive is
we'll do it $7,500.
Really?
Yeah, it's a lot of extra paperwork.
So
It's just paperwork, it really is. So they won't take the state seeker.
It's just the way to make
Tape,
money.
right, the tape and sticker.
Yep.
But the challenge is, you think about like the Cheshire Sewer, right? Or any of those projects where we've submitted, or if there's something we're gonna do for CDBG, anything, housing or anything, or even COVID money, right? Now we're gonna have to do this before we can submit the grant application. So the grant application just went up, the cost associated with doing it. So we have to think strategically about if we're gonna go after some of this stuff.
How big are the grants compared to this?
Well, this request was for $1 million, this grant request was for $1 million. That was 600,000 essentially for Ocean Junction plus 300 and change for COVID business assistance.
What was the reason again for the state requiring the?
Because it's Charlie Fillion, who is with the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. What he said is it's so cumbersome to do the process that they want to require the NEPA up front to make sure that you're on track and that you're going to get it done, because they'll only give you 24 months to complete the project once they give you an award.
They have been doing it though?
They're just starting. He
No,
said.
I mean, after the fact, they give you the award, then they do.
No, so the way it's worked in the past is prior to, say, April 2022, you would apply for the grant, they would give you the grant, and they would say, before you can start anything, you have to do NEPA on it, right? So that was one of the challenges with the playground specifically. And so, for instance, like if we had moved forward with that Cheshire thing, right? So we would have had to do NEPA, submit that before we could do anything, before we could do engineering, before we could do anything, do that first, and then move forward with the rest of it.
But in the past, was NEPA ever done on a project like this?
Yes, it's always been done.
After the fact? though?
Well, it's
I
been
mean, it
done
was
during the process.
during the process of.
It technically has to be done before you can start any work on the project. And that's the way it's been in the past. So it does add another layer of red tape. It really does. It's unfortunate.
Well, it's gotta be done anyways, it's just when it has to be done, right?
And the cost.
And the cost, right? Yeah. Municipal, oh.
This is the
Yeah, go
BPD, yeah. Chuck Bastian from BPD reached out to us a few weeks ago, and he said, hey, I was just looking through the files, and we haven't updated an agreement with you guys since 2016. There've been some changes in the language, the terminology, different, I believe he said SEC requirements. And so he said, I'd just like to get an updated letter to you guys, an engagement letter for the services that we're doing, so that we can have the most up-to-date language and be transparent in what services we're providing.
So BPD is when we did bonds, is when we, like for instance, a water project or even the highway building as an example, like we float a bond. So BPD does that work for us. Plus they also every single year, twice a year, they provide us kind of like an update on, okay, here's the amount that you owe principal and interest and all your different, bonds, municipal bonds that you have outstanding. Plus there's some reports that have to be done annually, and we always have to file each quarter. They ask us if we've had any material statements that we have to do. So they assist us with all of that type of stuff and making sure that you know, we're getting all those reports done accurately and promptly and efficiently so that we can maintain a good credit rating, bond rating, so.
Is that the old Bernie Donegan firm?
It is, yeah, they're great too. They're really, we've talked about working with vendors and sometimes they wait for us to give direction. BPD's not like that. They're proactive.
And
They
they're a good
always
group.
reach out to us and say, this is what we need to do. Do you have an upcoming debt payment? They're really fantastic to work with.
The next resolution, I know it's listed under planning public works. It is a purchase of a new double drum roller. Terry, I know that there was some conversation about this with planning public works and everything, and this was talked about before and everything. This is a budgeted item.
Yeah.
So Jim was able to get quotes on this.
Recommend to do it, yeah, definitely.
Jared, I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on here.
I don't know if there's anything. Does anybody else have any comments or anything they want to bring up from the other items? I have one thing that I didn't want to share. Or
Just on purchases, if it could, so tomorrow, is Jim talking about the back truck?
Talked about back trucks and all that.
Oh, yeah, right. So, okay, so the county, Jared, we might need some help here. So I guess from what I understand, Ontario County is replacing its back truck. It's just cyclical. It's time in terms of time to replace it. Back trucks, from what I understand, are like an 18-month plus waiting time. So the old back truck that the county is replacing is set to go back to the, not the manufacturer, but the distributor that distributes them. And I guess the distributor said that they're really looking forward to getting that truck and everything because it's very, very hard to get trucks. Meanwhile, somebody from the county reached out to Jim and said, hey, if you guys are interested in getting this before we return it to the distributor, maybe you guys can buy it as a way to get in to get one. And he was talking about 125,000. So I know the back truck, I know the county's old back truck is going to be here tomorrow for them to look at it. For a test drive.
How much are they new?
For almost 5.
And how old is this thing?
This one's older. It's, I guess it has 20,000 miles on it, but it's like 10 plus years old. But I guess it's been very well maintained and taken care of.
So if they were going to, if they gave it back to the distributor would get at least that if they were selling it?
The distributor would pay 125 for it and probably charge closer to 2 plus.
Okay.
Yeah. From what I understand. So it might be an opportunity here. We'd have to somehow insert ourselves in the county
Yeah.
surplus list.
Yeah.
Just don't give it back once you get it.
We
Well,
lost
so-
keys. Where did keys go?
Right, so I said to him, I said, well, what are you gonna do with it tomorrow, right? So I guess there's 2 holes that have to be done over at Motion Junction for a bench.
No,
So they're gonna suck the holes out with this back truck tomorrow to test it. But the big, huge benefit of these things, I know, I'm sure you guys have all heard Jim talking about these back trucks, especially when we have a water main break or whatever, is they're not digging with the backhoe and breaking utility lines or breaking water lines or anything. They're literally sucking the dirt out into this machine
Yeah.
so that it doesn't disrupt any of the stuff. So, yeah.
There's a lot of times where a water line might be close to a gas line and things like that, that one's easy to get at, but the other one's very close to it. And I mean, that's the argument Jim makes, you know.
Right. He's
If
been
it
making it for quite a long time.
with
Right?
a bucket truck. it can't.
Right?
Right.
You'd be perfect.
So is this in the budget or is it, it's a not budgeted?
It's a non-budgeted item.
Did anyone say what the expected life of this thing is? If it's 10 years old? Means granted, it has no mileage on it, but
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
you don't know what
Mechanical
the internal
Yeah,
works, how
yeah.
much that's been used.
It's not the mileage. it's
Yeah.
the Use of
It's
the
hours.
system.
It's this, yeah,
It's on it, it's mounted on it.
right.
I mean, so the thing is, right, normally we would have replaced heavier equipment like that 10 to 12 years. But the difference is, okay, do we spend $500,000 on one and get a new one that's gonna last that, or do we spend 100,000 on one that might last us for 5 or 10 years to get us started and then.
Last 5 years, that'd be great.
You see how much we,
Right,
any places rent them?
Yeah, but then we pay a ton. How much, do you know how much we paid?
Oh,
I think we
my
paid
gosh.
almost $100,000 last year for
Oh.
renting one.
So
It was
so we pay-
very expensive.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
just, and is that an annual thing? I mean, is that
Yes.
consistent year to year?
Well, we just started using.
He just,
Oh,
right.
He just started using
yeah,
them, so we wouldn't
yeah.
know, but. I mean, what you're renting other equipment,
So the vac truck
Part of
is
that.
different than the street sweeper then?
Yes.
Okay.
that's what I was thinking.
It's not the
Like,
same
we're gonna
thing.
start sweeping streets.
Yes. We have.
Because
this-
we
do
have a
have
shared
a
one with
street.
Bloomfield, right?
Right, we share it with this Bloomfield, right?
I would imagine the wear parts are probably really available.
Yeah.
Replaceable, and,
giant.
you know, you really have to look at the, the vacuum system and all
Right.
of that,
Right. The vac truck, so street sweeper, you've seen street sweepers, right? They go along and they're sucking up the stuff as it goes and it's brushing, right? The vac truck has like this giant hose essentially that
It's
a
goes
big
down into the
vacuum,
ground.
yep.
It's a giant vacuum on wheels that sucks everything up, the dirt, the stone, you name it, the mud, the water, whatever's there, leaves, you name it. So that was the other thing, and Jim just, I think, since he started using and renting this one
Yeah.
for a water main break originally, this was the first use of it. Sees the benefit because you can get in tight around the gas lines, the electric lines without damaging any of that, even
It's used when we
clogged
did
storm
the
drains.
water project for Canada Consolidated and
Yeah.
Little Cheshire Road where you had come under the road and,
Mhm.
make a left-hand turn to go down Little Cheshire.
Right, yeah.
I think that was
There's-
the first experience and it was.
Yeah.
There's no way to finance one and pay, I mean, if you're spending $100,000 a year to rent one,
Mhm.
there's no way to finance a new one where you're paying $100,000 a year for 5 years, and then you've got five to 10 years of however else long free and clear of it, other than maintenance.
We could
Attach it to a
certainly
bond,
lease it,
maybe,
right?
or-
So we leased we're doing the lease program, right? So we leased a roll-off truck back here. I'm not so sure that was a good idea for us. I see where smaller communities do it, right? We ended up leasing that and it's been a headache and it actually ended up costing us a little extra money to
Did it?
lease it than if we had just purchased it outright. And especially with a piece of equipment like that you're gonna have for a longer period of time. I mean, we leased it in March or April of 2020 when COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
The plan was we were purchasing it. It was already on order. We had ordered it at the end of 19. And when COVID hit and we were scared about what was going to happen to revenues, we switched it to a lease. I'm not so sure about that. It's worked in some
It took
places.
about 8 months for it to finalize
Yeah, it
too.
did.
It was a lot
Just
of
a
your
thought.
engine's time to go through that paperwork.
Yeah.
I would think for 125 grand, that's a one-time, payment, the maintenance on it to replace those parts that would wear during its operation. Would probably be a lot less than that,
Mhm.
so that if you got 5 years out of it,
You're right.
And-
I think it's worth a look at. And,
And it's really ideal to be for another municipality as well.
Yeah. So we should know about this Thursday of last week. We were talking about police cars and everything else. We just added
Well,
it.
he just told me yesterday about it. I guess it's happening pretty fast.
Yeah, so I'll reach out to them today and just see what I can do to get it moving.
I know that they're gonna bring it over tomorrow for him to look at.
Right.
So
Okay.
he wanted to make sure, he wanted to look at it, him and Jim Burke, to make sure everything works.
Looks like the weatherman's gonna be right.
I hate when he's right.
Okay. Hey, you guys, anything else? I did want to share something that I received this past week. So we're having discussion with, about housing. No, it's not even in here, see if I can find it in a second. So we were discussing housing and we were discussing the cost associated with it. And this kind of goes along with the whole affordable housing discussion. Great, now that I'm talking.
This was at the county level, Jerry?
This is at the county level, yeah, okay. And this came from Eileen Tiberio, she's Director of Social Services at the county, and she sent information about, oh, whoa. Yeah, I'm supposed to have a thing at 12:30 outside.
Look at you.
I don't think you will.
I'm not saying that I'm,
I think that is canceled.
maybe I got messed up or nothing. Okay, all right. I mean, not you guys like that. So it's talking, and the ALICE data is, and if you're not familiar with that, I wasn't, it's asset limited income constrained employee. So people who are working but income constrained. And this is for Ontario County. In Ontario County, we have 44,000 households. The unemployment rate is 3.3%. The state average is 5%. Our median income is 62,522. State average is 67,844. Alice households, we have 27%. The state average is 31%. Households in poverty, we have 9%. The state average is 14%. As far as the count, the region and the county, we're one of the best situated towns as far as this goes. But looking at it, so for a single adult, the minimum survival budget is 27,000. Putting that household, the rent for a single adult at about 810. So it kind of goes along with what we've been talking about with that money for the affordable housing. You know, and then 2 adults and, you know, 2 adults and 2 children, it takes that rent money to the expenditure for housing to 1091. So kind of keep that in your, I can share this out with you guys. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if you've received this information before, but I'll share it out to all of you. But it for planning for, you know, for projects that we have going down the road, it's very interesting information.
Did they share anything? I ran into Krista Bolton. He told me that there was some new numbers that were going to be coming out on homelessness. And he said it was really high. I think he said 300 and something or other.
I have not seen that. I've heard there have been a lot of numbers, nothing official. I've heard numbers floating around in Health and Human Services, but nothing giving a specific number to the homeless, to that homeless population. But I can share this with you guys as we look at it going forward. And it's just an interesting piece mark for those, you know, for the wages.
Yeah.
For a single adult to survive, it's $13.66, $13.66, which is what they would need. An adult and child, you're looking at $20.66 an hour to be at that break-even point, that survival point. But it's just interesting to have interesting information to look at. And I'll see if I can get more on that population. That was countywide at 300.
Do we have adequate housing to support those numbers?
No.
That's why we have discussion, you know, within the discussion is now happening that at a county level, and we authorize looking into doing a county housing audit to see what's available at what price point within the entire county, because it's really a lot bigger discussion than just the town, you know, with everything that's out there. So that's the first step to see, okay, what do we have and at what price point?
Well, that was my question, was accounting now.
Yeah, so, and that's the next step. So then as plans go forward, we can meet some of those needs and we can see where those are. But yeah, but right now we're, you know, there is a need in that area, and those are people who are working. Those are people who are working those full-time jobs and trying to make ends meet and survive.
I know there's a lot. I mean, it's such a hot topic all over everything, all over the nation, but especially even just looking at Ontario County. I know I've had some conversations about people that are living in motels that otherwise that's not really long-term, you know, residency, but they're doing that. And truthfully, if the municipalities were to start enforcing their zoning, there would probably even be more homeless. I know, Jared, I think I mentioned to you in a meeting the other day, I had a call from a sheriff deputy who was telling me that one of the municipalities was evicting and closing some places because the guy was saying that they were motels, and so they were trying to, or that they were motels when they were apartments, so that he could evict them because he couldn't evict them if they were apartments. And so any number of different things are kind of going on. It's really such a hot topic right now.
And it is going to take a larger, you know, a countywide approach on it to make it work. As far as the county goes, the only municipalities that have a lower poverty rate from the town are the town of Seneca, Victor, and Victor, Richmond, Bristol, and South Bristol.
Really? Victor's in there?
Victor's, well, lower than Victor's at 2%. This is the whole county. Victor's at 2%. Their poverty levels at 2%, but their Alice level is 22%, where we're 6% and our Alice level is 23%. So we don't have as many in poverty, meeting that threshold. We have a lot in that, you know, to kind of quote George Bush, that donut hole area, you know, that middle that middle area. They're not here to receive those services. And they're not killing it, but they're in that middle area. You know, and that's a big, so yeah, Victor's 2 and they're 22%, Alice we're 6 and we're 23%.
We have affordable housing meeting on Friday, if you wouldn't mind sending that, because then we could talk about.
Yeah,
that.
that should come up. Yeah, I'll share that out with you guys. Okay, that's all the only other information that I have to share.
Is the Affordable Housing Committee going to continue to meet on the same basis? I mean, given what the county's doing?
I had a that's, I think, one of the discussions for this Friday. I had a conversation with Karen and Matt about that. And we thought maybe we could talk about that. And since the county's taken that initiative at the county level, that maybe the team could focus specifically on Canandaigua and what we could do, whether it's introducing landowners and developers, or whether it's helping making some of the specific connections relative to Canandaigua. So I think there's still an opportunity for them to work and do some stuff and focus, micro focus on Canandaigua while letting the county do the broader stuff.
Is any of what's been talked about so far in the uptown area oriented strictly toward affordable ideas that
Yes, multiple, one development, specifically the Edgemere development facility that's being looked at for Parkside Drive. That is 100% affordable housing, that entire building. They work very closely with Charlie Fillion and Lenny Cesare in New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. They're very in tune with that. Pat Stone is also a member of our team, and Matt and I had a chance to meet with the vice president who's in charge of all of the real estate portions of Pat Stone. They have a very interesting model. We just talked to him yesterday. We're trying to set up a time for him to come to Canandaigua so we can give him a tour and we can talk to him in a bit more depth, and we'll let you guys know. But he had some really interesting perspectives, and they have a whole myriad of programs that they support the people who move into the facility to help them kind of get going and takes those next steps in their lives. And then there's the piece that I always call it a tether, because I don't know how else to call it, but the piece to make sure that Mr. and Mrs. Smith don't just cash out on the thing and then it no longer is affordable, right? So Pat Stone has experience with some of that type of stuff. So it'd be interesting to look at, but they're very interested in Canandaigua. They've been, he's based out of Corning. They've done a lot of work in Rochester. They have quite a bit of projects right now in development projects in downtown Rochester, the East Ave area. That's a lot of that is all Pat Stone. And so he's very interested in our form-based code and uptown, their experience with form-based code. So he wants to come see and explore. So.
And they do a lot, yeah, with that, like Doug said, with the ownership. So you have that vested interest in your home, and you're locked in there, but you know, with programs to help people stay in their homes without taking advantage of it. But instead of a rent subsidy, it would be a, you know, for lack of a better term, a mortgage type subsidy where, you know, assistance with mortgage or with home repairs or things like that you can tap into rather than it going to an apartment. You're not building anything in the home that you can have as your own.
good.
Definitely that whole issue has so many different pieces to it. There's
And it's
because we haven't even talked here today about senior housing, right? That's where what the county is going to be working on in terms of housing that's so needed, because, you know, like the example that Gene gave of the couple that came in. And I know there's other examples of that in the town of Canandaigua where seniors can't stay in their current residence. So,
well, I got an email from somebody at Centerpoint who was renting one of 300. You know, asking if we could put price controls on the rent. I'm like, I sent her over to Terry. Talk to my friend Terry, because that says that,
They had a couple of rooms to rent. So kids are gone. No, that's a rule.
Yeah, that's tough. But yeah, I'll share that out with everyone, and that's all that. Anything else have anything to bring up? All right, thank you everyone for being here, and want to adjourn.
See, I'm not on the committee.
Oh, you're not on. the committee. Second. All right, all in favor? All right. Thanks, everyone.